Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm excited to be here today to interview two of our authors from the third book in the Changing Work Collective book series. This book is titled, Are We Friends or Coworkers? Exploring Relationships at Work. This will be published on May 30th of this year, 2025, and we're really looking forward to it. My name is Blair Morris. I'm founder and professional coach with Liminalities Coaching and Consulting. And today I am a volunteer host and member of the Changing Work Collective, or changingwork.org, as well as a contributing author in the second book in the series, which was titled Leading with Compassion, Cultivating Connection from the Inside Out, which is available at bookshop.org or Amazon. For anyone listening who may be unfamiliar with the Changing Work Collective, we're an online community of individuals who are committed to conscious business practices and changing work from the inside out. Very important in these days. I'm super excited to be here with these two authors. I think you guys are going to enjoy our conversation with really inspirational stories. So there's 24 authors in the book, and today we're being joined by Christina Kravis, who wrote Chapter 5, Red Zone, and Rohit Sawhney, who wrote Chapter 22, Common Ground Isn't That Common. Both of these chapters, very insightful learning on relationships in the workplace. And there's some key themes in each, which we will be exploring today. Thank you both for being here. Let's start with some introductions. And Christina, your chapter came up first, so let's start with you.
Hi, Blair. Thanks so much for having us. I'm really excited for the conversation today. Yet another way to form community. And so thank you for that. As you said, I'm Christina Kravis. I am a producer and a brand marketing executive, and I have really worked across a plethora of industries, from film production to today I'm working in multimedia publishing, and had some stopovers in luxury products as well, luxury beauty products. So I really span industries, working in production, brand, and marketing. And now writing.
Yay!
Now about to be published author.
Yes, you are. Congratulations, too.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Rohit, can you please tell us about yourself?
Of course. Nice to be here. And thank you, Christina and Blair, for the opportunity. I am Rohit Sawhney, based out of the Bay Area in California, and I am primarily in technology. So I work on building products across different industries over the last 25 years here in Silicon Valley. Semiconductors, SaaS services, and cybersecurity, which is where I am today. Excited to be here and excited for our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. What inspired each of you to write your chapters? Christina.
Sure. Well, if we go back a few months in the fall, I was really, Blair, looking for an outlet for creativity. And I have always been a writer. I've always written for work, but I wanted something kind of deeper with my writing. And so that was a thought. And this opportunity crossed my path. And I thought, oh, okay, great, an opportunity to do this writing. But it's interesting because what it came with was community. And what that community brought was accountability. So I went from that idea of I want to write to I am writing to I need to stay in integrity with this community of people I respect and meet my deadlines and get this thing done. So it was so wonderful to be able to go from just the idea of an abstract idea of wanting to get in touch with my creativity to actually having an outlet for that and having a community around it to support its fruition.
Mm, lovely. And yeah, similar experience for me. You put it to words great. Rohit, what about you?
For me, similar to what Christina mentioned, I do value and seek creativity. I have to admit that even though I work on building products in technology, you would imagine that there's a level of creativity there.
Mhm.
There can be, certainly, but it's a different sort of outlet. So personally, I do a lot of work around music and sports, and that's an outlet and also very therapeutic. And writing, as I think we probably all share, can also be very therapeutic. So I wanted that forcing function in some ways. Beyond that, I am trying to get better at storytelling, and I felt that sharing a story that perhaps connects with others would be impactful. So where I seek, you know, where I seek things in my life is where, when it can impact others and inspire others. To me, that's motivating and brings me joy. And so doing that eh, through this outlet and being able to broadcast that, even further than writing on my own blog or sharing something around the dinner table, um, was motivating. And so that was really my interest, was to share that story, that uniqueness, but also make sure that my authenticity and my voice comes out in that process. And so that was fun to go through and just spend, probably, if I'm being honest, maybe a whole weekend just doing it. The crux of what was the output was, a couple of days of dedicated time and energy and flow. But that was fun to go through and to prove to myself that that can be done.
Thank
It's
you.
interesting. I just want to reflect this idea that you shared that, of course, we want our words to be meaningful to those who are reading it. And I do sense that over this lifetime of work, I think that there's something I could share that hopefully someone will read and it will have an impact for them. It will help them in some way. And maybe I did that and maybe I didn't. But it was so interesting reading the galley of the book. And I guarantee anyone working in corporate America today will read the first 5 paragraphs of Rohit's story
Uh-huh.
and feel it. Like,
Absolutely.
this is something, it felt so universal and so visceral for me. Like I was right in there, and your story helped me. It helped me feel not alone. It helped me feel like there's community here for me, even in this book. So, well, thank you for that, first of all. But um, if that was part of the purpose of your writing, mission accomplished.
Totally.
Hmm. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Well, let's dig a little deeper in each of your chapters. And Christina, we're going to start with you. Um, so I really resonated with Red Zone. And without giving too much away, because I can do that sometimes, I really appreciate your giving language to the red zone. I had never really thought about what you experienced in that metaphor of red zone. So I love that. And there's a very deep lesson in your story that at least I picked up. Can you share a little bit more about why you chose this story to share in this book? Are we friends or coworkers?
Sure. I mean, part of it, the writing process is just, of course, opening up and like, what's coming out? Like, what comes up first? And workshopping that. But I think a big part of this process for me in particular is that I chose a story that was really pretty deep in my history, but it ribboned its way throughout my work life in
Mhm.
its way, that there was something about it that had been so painful to me at that moment that I think it had been residual. And I was really ready to let it go.
Mm,
And what better way to kind of put a bow on it and just put it on paper and send it out into the world. And it was interesting because I won't say that it was weighing on me. this story, this relationship anymore. It did for a long time. It wasn't really weighing on me, but it still felt really good to just let it go and let it be its own, just encapsulated on the page. And in fact, as I finished it, I think in the final paragraph, I really envision meeting this person again. And I mean it. I think it'd be fun for the first time in many years. I think, oh, I'd actually love to connect with this person again. And I think the process of writing and choosing this particular material really helped me do that.
Mm, thank you. Thank you. Well, you mentioned this thread through your career. And from your story, it actually seems like that you have experienced a paradigm shift over your career, on how you experienced those in the red zone.
Mhm.
What's that like for you to go through that process of paradigm shifting?
Well, it's funny because it's not always pretty. It sounds much prettier in your words than it is in reality. I have, as I've processed, as I've grown and deepened, we have these habitual ways of putting people into boxes and deciding they're good or they're bad or they're this and they're that. And I now can catch myself um, putting very good people, trying to shove them into that kind of a box. Like, oh, you're bad, or you're a bad listener, or you're whatever. You take advantage of people, and then I have to step back and say, well, they're not actually taking advantage of me. If I have
Mm.
a boundary issue with them, I can say, oh, here's my boundary. I have options. I guess that's how my rambling way of answering Blair. I think that as I have grown, I still encounter people that would, in a different era of my life, really inflame me. And now I just have a few more options to take responsibility for my side, and my come from, and place a boundary if I need it, so that it doesn't have to, so we don't have to get into that kind of red zone territory.
And well, you just described life journey of growing up for most of us, and walking through the healing process. Some faster, some of us a lot slower, myself, and finding these challenges of boundaries and things. Now, you come from a background originally working in Hollywood,
Mm,
the land of story in
mhm.
many ways. So, what was it like for you to write your own story?
Uh, I'd like to say it was completely fun. There were fun aspects of it, but the act of writing is painful. It feels like this. It doesn't feel like smooth. I wish I could say I was one of those people who like, and maybe right, you're like this, that the music just appears for you and it expresses itself. It came in fits and starts. I would write something that I thought was great and return to it and thought it was horrible. But I will say that one big surprise for me, um, having given writers feedback for a lot of my career, I was a little nervous about getting the feedback. And I actually found the feedback from the community, the feedback from our editor, to be fun. It was wonderful to receive the thoughts of others and to see how many of those thoughts pointed in the same direction of like, where is the story weaker? Where could you go deeper? And that was surprisingly delightful, to be
Mm.
honest, to have the feedback and thoughts, of the intelligent community that I was surrounding myself with. So that was fun.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. Rohit. So I feel like I've lived your story. I think Christina was talking to that as well. I think your story is going to resonate with a lot of people who've worked in corporate settings before. Then again, not sharing too much, but I've been you in many ways, but I also resonated with maybe some of the drivers your boss was experiencing at that same time. Um, and I think I was a little slower maybe to learn some of the lessons that you picked up over your career and that you brought forth in your story. Can you share more about why this story and these lessons?
Why this story and these lessons? I once again, without giving too much away, I started with that story because, I think it just resonated. I felt it would resonate with others to the point that you made, and it was something that just um, it's when you know how sometimes you can put yourself in that place and feel that again.
Mhm.
And so, long after or many years later, I can still feel how I felt at that time when that was happening. And I found it interesting because it wasn't actually a human conversation. If you recall, I
Mhm.
describe a chat conversation over a computer, which many people have. Um, and that can still have a feeling. And given the context of what I was going through at that time with family, I felt that that would be interesting. And it touches on something that I'm always trying to balance, frankly, which is probably why it was a undertone or theme, is family and balance. Uh, I think I personally do a above average job in balancing things in life, but my core responsibility always is my family above everything else. And so I have always prioritized that. In fact, I try to go out of my way to describe myself first as a husband and a father than I do any other title or anything else I do, because to me that's the most important, and that's how I stack rank things. Um, so in that lived experience based on my values, I was trying to balance that by being a good team player and being there for my family. And that's something I think all of us, regardless of family situation, have to balance. So I felt that that was a story that would resonate. And more importantly, I think before I even thought that, it's just something that was in my mind. Not something I necessarily needed closure to.
Mhm.
But I think Christina, to your story, like it was very impactful and you could feel it. So I felt that others could also just empathize with that and feel that, that relationship, a tense one. I think there's a commonality there. There was some tension. Um, but at the same time, once again, without giving things away, I think Christina, you did it very clever in how you came about at the end of your story with Red Zone. I tried to do something similar where I'm trying to be empathetic and understand the other perspective as well. Blair, to your point. So whoever's listening to this, if you haven't read the story, it may not make sense what we're talking about here. But that was the reason I shared it, is that in that moment of reading it, and perhaps this is for a cue to everyone listening to this now who hasn't gotten the book and who hasn't read it, read it and see how you feel. But I felt that you could be there and be immersed. And to me, those are the most compelling stories because you're just caught up in it and you want to know, what's the next line and what's going to happen.
Hmm.
I, yes, all the way. And I think that's what's so powerful about this series of books that the collective is putting out is that using the power of story, which is way more powerful than just lectures and academic writing, which is what I used to be more involved in medicine. These stories really resonate. And yes, so hopefully if anybody's watching this, they have read the book or will be. So, a theme that I picked up in your chapter, in your story, you talked about values and in some ways value masking that we encounter in leadership because I have yet to meet a leader in an organization who doesn't profess to put family first and want their employees to put family first.
Mm,
Um, but maybe more importantly than just that, I was really aligning with the message of courage
mm,
that I picked up from your story about what happens when you are in the corporate world and things aren't the way they need to be for you.
mm.
How does my experience with your story resonate with you or not?
It's interesting you say that. It makes sense when you say it. I wasn't necessarily thinking of it that way. So I think that's the beauty of someone's perspective and how they see it. So thank you for sharing that first off. But yes, that makes sense because it takes courage to speak up, to hold your ground, to defend your position, and that is a challenge. And in some ways, you have to have that environment to be able to do that, and in other situations, you just have to recognize that for yourself. So I mentioned another workplace that I was in that
Mhm.
I didn't say it clearly in the chapter itself, but I did end up leaving because my values did not resonate with the values and the culture of the company. But I did place, in fact, in the editing process, I specifically, I believe it was my wife's advice, to put the word culture in there at one point because she said that that is a very important component of this, is if that culture does not align with your values, then yeah, you have to have, Blair, to your point, the courage to speak up or recognize that. Um, Now, I'm also conscious of the fact that sometimes that can come across as either entitled in some way, like, okay, not everyone has the privilege to just walk away from something to find something else. That's a whole other conversation perhaps we can have. But I mention it because one of the things that I think a lot about in life is choices. And those of us that have choices through the privilege of, say, an education or industry experience, that is something to hang your hat on. Like you have a choice, you can step away. There are many people out there that don't have that choice at all. And we see it every day, right? In the news to other experiences. And so they're limited and their ability to take on risk or to have the courage to speak up is not there. And so I'm very conscious of that. But sharing that in the way that I did was intentional so that people reading it can think about that and decide for themselves. Do they have that alternative? Do they have that choice? What does it mean to step away from this? Or maybe it's not step away, it's okay, just comply, but then seek what you need elsewhere, which is actually something that I recognize in this process that I actually do.
Thank you. There's a lot of key points in that and very thoughtful on that. And actually, it somewhat ties to my last question, which was in these current times, we're hearing constant conversations about burnout and resilience and work-life balance, whatever that means, I think is different for each. Um, in your chapter, you brought up, organizational or leadership perceptions that if someone isn't in their seat working, then they don't have commitment, that there's a lack of commitment to the organization.
Hmm.
In what ways would you advise a younger version of you, a young colleague, or one of your kids going into the work world? How would you advise them to navigate these issues in corporate culture?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have in full transparency two daughters, one who's in 11th grade, so not too far removed from being in whatever industry she chooses to be in. Um, And so, my advice is always to be true to yourself, to discover what brings you joy ultimately. I actually say this to my eldest daughter. It's not so much what you learn, but what you learn about yourself.
Mhm.
And I think that is most important. And that's at least the approach that we take and the philosophy we take around education and discovery. So, as it relates to work-life balance, I always, from a family standpoint, stack rank health um, and family values. And so we live and breathe that every day in what we do. And I guess what I would say to that is see how you can recognize when you are imbalanced. For me personally, I have some cues for that. If I'm not exercising every day, or if I'm not having probably 5 or 6 meals with my family every week, like we typically sit down at the dinner table, all of us, and we'll wait for each other. And that's a big component of what we do. If that is askew or not happening, then I know something's imbalanced, which means that I probably need to say no to more things or reprioritize. So just recognizing that, like what gives you joy, what makes you feel good, so you have the energy to then put that towards the work environment. That's proven, as we may know, like when you feel good, then you can also play good. And so you have to feel good about yourself, health-wise, rest-wise, and then you can produce a lot more. So that is something that I would advise folks to understand. Like we oftentimes just sit there and keep working, and there's really no value from that. There's actually diminishing returns. So walking away, be it in the writing process or the creative process or otherwise, it's actually proven that stepping out and going for a walk or exercising or just stepping away from what you're doing is going to be much more productive. So recognizing that imbalance and then coming back and pouring your energy into it, the flow will be much better and the output hopefully will be much better.
Thank you. Yes. Any other themes that you guys picked up from each other's chapters or stuff that you would like to bring forth that you read or learned from each other?
Go ahead, Christina. Were you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say in Red Zone, you head on, you take on this relationship that was very complex, and you can feel that. And it resonated with me because specifically, Christina, and hopefully I'm not giving anything away here, but like someone taking credit for something that you did has happened to me as well. And it doesn't make you feel good. And when you see it happening right in front of your eyes, it's shocking, and sometimes you don't know what to say. So how you handle that though, and I'm not yeah, I don't believe you went into the specifics of it, but it shows a lot about an individual. The judgment you need, the care you need to kind of just take that and see how you process it. It resonated with me, but it's also a theme I think that others can connect with, which is that you have someone who's quote unquote an enemy or is vying for the same thing you are vying for. You're going to have this at any level, grade school, high school. You're competing in a race at the track meet, or you're trying to get the board position or whatever that may be. So it's interesting because ultimately the message is focusing on yourself and not so much others. And that connected with me because I also think a lot about that. Like, don't worry so much what other people think, focus on what you can do and what you can do better. And so to me, maybe I'm uh, uh, extrapolating this theme. So I apologize. It's not representing perhaps Christina, your story, but it's looking inward and seeing what you can control the controllables. And one of my mantras in life, and I share this with others, and I'm not the first person to say this, but like 1% better every day, right? Just you're only competing with yourself, right? So what can you do better and improve? upon. James Clear talks about this with 1% better, and there's other books around this, 2% better, the 2% way. Um, they're all about looking inward and focusing there. And I thought that was a good message, is my point. That we can get caught up in others and what they're doing, and that can influence and pollute us in different ways, and that can be um, very taxing. But
Mm, mm,
ultimately, what you can control is what you do and how you show up. And so I think that's a positive spin on it. That was a
thank you.
theme that I at least took away.
Thank you. I would say, this returning to just a few minutes ago, this idea of proving your worth through being at your desk for 18 hours a day, whatever. That is a visual it's just very common. It's very common, and all the more common in today when many of us working hybrid or remote. I would say it opens up an area of discussion that is very ripe for yet another book. Actually, I look forward to your next essay,
Mhm.
Rohit, on it, because I think I'm constantly um, in thought about that balance of life and work. Because hard work is great. Hard work is wonderful and fulfilling in many ways. And there is hard work is not the same as sitting at your desk for 18 hours a day. It is not the same as answering the all caps Slack message or whatever that's coming your way. And I personally have a hard time understanding the line when the line is being crossed of what is valuable in terms of work effort and what is actually wasted. Uh, so I think you touch on it in your story. And like I said, I'm looking forward to the next essay because I think there's more wisdom to come and more conversation to come around that as we in 2025 figure out how to change work, how we can really benefit from our work and impact folks with our work because it does feel a little broken for many of us right now. So I will just say thank you, Rohit, for sharing what you did and for getting us a step closer to the sense of balance that you have. I'm also just like trying in the back of my mind to figure out a way to parlay myself into an invitation next time your mom is cooking
Oh,
because
yeah.
because it's almost lunchtime here and I am thinking about that.
Mm. Yeah, she is in the Bay Area now. I'm lucky to have both my mother-in-law who lives with us and my mom not too far away. So lots of good food
Well,
to do.
no wonder you're having dinner together because the food must be spectacular.
It's usually me and six, seven ladies. I've grown up with a household of women, so that's always the case. So I'm very privileged in that sense and blessed.
Well, thank you both. This has been really a delightful conversation and very inspiring and thought-provoking. I've definitely enjoyed that. Before we wrap up, where can those listening find you if they wanted to follow you or get in touch with you? Rohit?
Um, yeah, I guess it would be all the socials. Although I admit I'm not very much on the socials, to be honest. I do
Okay.
have a Twitter handle. You can look it up. I think it's just Rohit_Sani, or on LinkedIn. You can certainly find me. My profile picture is there. Um, it's interesting because as part of this process, I don't actually participate much in the Facebook and Instagram nor TikTok. That's intentional. Because I just try to preserve my own sanity. And there's so many things that I'm trying to get to doing in a given day, that's just the way I approach it. But yeah, if you need to reach out to me, I'm always responsive. So between email, the collective here, and LinkedIn, always happy to help and connect with folks.
Thank you. Christina, how about you?
Yeah, I'd say LinkedIn is the best spot for me, or, within the collective. Exactly. Come join us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We need everybody. So, again, thank you both for sharing your valuable insights today and for your powerful contributions. These chapters are just wonderful. So, book 3, Are We Friends or Coworkers? Exploring Relationships at Work, is being published on May 30th, 2025. And if you've enjoyed this conversation, we've already invited you and we're inviting you again to explore our first 2 best-selling books, Leading with Self-Awareness, Starting from the Inside Out, and then the second book, Leading with Compassion, Cultivating Connection from the Inside Out, both available now at bookshop.org and Amazon. And if this sparks something meaningful for you with this lovely conversation, yeah, please consider sharing it on your network, your colleagues, coworkers, community. And if you'd like to connect with others on this similar journey, to create more conscious, human-centered workplaces, we invite you to learn more about our growing community at changingwork.org. Thank you for being part of the movement to change work from the inside out, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.